Oh, hi folks, hope you're well. Thanks for the kind comments on the previous video. It's very nice to receive and read. Um, in this video this evening, because it's nice to have a break, isn't it, sometimes from conspiracies, I want to give you a bit of a précis, a synopsis, if you like, a quick history in time. Well, what I've done for the last sort of 37 years, being involved in the medical world. I want to give you my take on the whole affair. I've seen an awful lot of trauma and gathered all this experience throughout my life. I'm still involved in the medical world, but as I grow older and become more wiser, I rapidly realised that the body knows best. It's as simple as that. The body knows best. And we aren't even scratching the scratch of the scratch when it comes to truly understanding the way human beings work. We think we do, but then the rest is up to our Creator, God if you like. You know, even in intensive care, where you're making decisions where you say to the relatives, do we switch the machine off or do you want to hang on a while? Are they responding to neurologically? Are they responding? Are the lights on? Are the lights on? Or is there no one in? And this is always a dilemma for brain injury patients because you can't tell often. So from knife to skin, all the way to intensive care after accidents, you know, in every sort of field of medicine, I've had some form of knowledge base input. I've learned a great deal along that way. But one thing I have concluded after all this time is that, number one, pharmaceuticals are poisonous. There we are. That's certainly the case. Because anything we can take too much of which will kill us is poisonous. It's just a matter of dosage, isn't it? We're dicing with the devil on many occasions on that one. Number two is treating cancer is a hopeless case with pharmaceuticals, radiotherapy and chemotherapy. Heaven forbid if I was diagnosed with cancer, I wouldn't touch any of the medical offerings, not one of them. The only thing I would touch if I was in a lot of pain would be aspirin. That's all. Certainly not the hallucinogenic types. And apps for chemo and radio, that is, for me anyway, simply prolonging the agony. I would just rather say, cancer be damned, it'll get me when it gets me, and that's it. And recognise that very few people, quite frankly, recover from cancer. It's just a question of time. And I currently have a friend who's got prostate cancer. He's at that age, you know, 55, 60. And I said to him, well, it'll take 5 years to kill you. Probably. And he has a good flow, if you get my meaning, on his urine. It's not bothering him that much. He didn't know he had it. He's had it for about a year and a half. Didn't know he had it. Well, I just told him, forget it. If you're peeing like a, you know, like an elephant, just carry on peeing, old boy. And ignore the fact that you've got prostate cancer because you've got to die of something. And it'll take him probably 3 to 5 years to meet his maker. So why cripple yourself with all sorts of crap? Just enjoy those 3 to 5 years. Because we never know, do we? We never know. We could be going out this morning or tonight, bang, it's finished. We're all one heartbeat away, or lack of, to eternity. So yes, I've learned a great deal about surgery, anaesthesia, post-op complications, pharmaceuticals, available treatments, scanning techniques, yada yada yada. But I'm a big fan, big fan of alternative therapies. And people say that's one step away from sorcery. No, it ain't. It's just that has been suppressed, the natural ways of healing. And I firmly believe there isn't an illness that human beings suffer from, quite frankly, on this earth, the flat one, that there isn't a cure for. If only we knew where to find it. Because nature doesn't play silly buggers. Okay? If there's a yin, there's a yang. And sometimes we have the yin, but we can't find the yang. We can't find the cure. It's not that it doesn't exist, that nobody's found it, or it might be right under our nose and we don't realise. It might be right above our head and we don't realise. So in this video this evening I'll be talking about that thing above our head, which I'll go into. But one of the surprising things when you start out in surgery, or medicine, let's just say, is when you watch the hacking and slashing of surgery, and then, you know, I'm not talking microvascular surgery, that's another world, but when you're looking at the general jobbing gynecologist or orthopedic surgeons, which would be better off playing with Meccano, quite frankly. The human body is just inconsequential. They're playing Meccano. Yes, they love their toys and the drills and the AO plates and the power tools. Oh yes, they're in their element. May as well be in their dad's garage. But they do put people together again like Humpty Dumpty, don't they? And, you know, quite incredible. Bit like Meccano, because we have, even in the orthopedics, you have a thing called a mini fragment sets, which are tiny little screws and plates, and if you smash your hand up, they'll actually piece together all the splinters and fragments and the bones of the metacarpal in your hand, and it'll be as good as new. An amazing job, orthopedic surgeons, not knocking them. You'll need them one day if you break yourself. But there's lots of different types. Every ailment has a surgeon connected to it somewhere along the line, or a doctor that's very good at it. But the one thing that, in all our genius, we simply cannot do is put a spark of life into something that's inanimate. That's number one. We can't make something that's dead come to life. Unless you talk defibrillators, and that's another game. But from scratch to, you know, generating, the only way we can generate life is to procreate, folks. And nature's seen to that. And we can't better it, can we? So, in this video then, we're going to be looking at alternatives to the hacking and slashing and the pharmaceuticals. I'm a huge believer in acupuncture and trigger points and natural healing, because they too have their place, and yet they are looked down upon by many people in the medical profession. Oh, mumbo jumbo. You know, I'll write you a prescription. I don't want your prescription. Well, it says in my BNF book, British National Formulary book, that this is fine for your condition. 3 of these a week, you'll be absolutely spot on. No. You see, even when you consider the antibiotics, well, that's a natural natural healing, isn't it, really? Antibiotics. And some old duffer had a bit of bread that was going mouldy on his doorstep, on his windowsill, because he went away for a few days and came back. There's mould all over it. Yes, that penicillin. If I can recall, it was Jenner, if I can recall that far. And yes, discovered that where a bit of the fungus blew into an area of fungus, an area of on his cheese, the fungus didn't grow near it, did it? And anyway, long story. I'm a firm believer that you have a high degree of success if you attempt to treat yourself, if you know where to look and take the right guidance. But there's a couple of things that have convinced me more than anything else now that we are electric beings. Of course we are. We're full of batteries in every sense. Every cell has its own little power supply. Every cell generates a voltage. Every cell in your body. And there are 500 billion, I think, Bruce Lipton, something like that, some genius. Wonderful man. We are billions upon billions upon billions of little batteries all stuck together. Every cell is a hero, and it generates a voltage. Positive and negative, that's how we are. But the cells, as well as being electrical, they are sensitive, they are light sensitive. Well, that makes sense, because a photon is energy. And batteries love energy, because they get charged up. Without charging a battery, it goes flat and the cell dies. You know, exactly. Battery, cell, we're billions and billions of batteries, folks, we truly are. And these little batteries get their energy from the chemical process of breaking down food. And it all happens in the DNA, in the mitochondrial DNA. And I love it when people who don't quite grasp what DNA is, it was in his DNA, innit? Oh, think, yes, love, keep taking the biscuits. Keep eating the biscuits. Got enough DNA to go around for 4 people, you have. It's staggering when you look at how magnificent human beings are. In fact, all life on this earth is magnificent in its own way. We are truly nothing special, except on the intelligence front, and even that's questionable. Dolphins are probably the most intelligent creatures on this earth, but they keep their trap shut about it. If you've ever swam with the dolphins, which I did down in Cuba, not down in Cuba, across in Cuba, you'll know what I mean. They are phenomenal creatures. And look what the Japanese do to them. Chop their heads off and eat them. Nice people, the Japanese. Well, when I'm talking about electrical beings and every cell in our body, what is an alternative supply of energy then if you're not eating the food or you're not getting access to the right diet? Well, it might surprise you to learn that light, sunlight, is the greatest supplier of energy to our bodies, second to food. But if you don't ever get exposed to sunlight in your life, you're going to be deficient in so many things. Vitamins, okay? As well as you could potentially go absolutely nuts. Human beings need sunlight to function. But it's not just the sunlight. I mean, it's the sunlight. But light is composed of different wavelengths. Some wavelengths are quite bad for us. Ultraviolet, X-ray, gamma rays. These are all lights, okay? These are all light frequencies. These are all photons, okay, delivered at different wavelengths. And an X-ray is just a very powerful form of the spectrum we know as light. Because we can't see all the light. We only see a very narrow band of light. In fact, what human beings see is that long, but insects have a massive array of lights available. I would love to see this world the same as an insect. It would blow your mind. They can see ultraviolet for a start. Oh boy. But there's also, once you get past a certain point, as you go up the wavelengths, the light becomes invisible. But it equally becomes more powerful and more penetrative. And you can have infrared, which you cannot see. You can have near infrared, but you can feel it, can't you? You can feel the infrared, but you won't be able to see the little sucker as it penetrates your skin, where its energy is absorbed, and that's transmitted as heat. Will it make no surprise to you then that if you want to look at the alternative medicine world, that the one thing you should really seriously look at is how light can help you improve your health, to the point where you really don't need the meds. You may need the meds. I'm not going to contradict you what your doctor says, but you'll certainly find that you're less dependent on them, and you'll be able to cut the dosage down. Maybe you suffer from hay fever, as I do, and you can cut it back because there's a drug, antihistamines, you can get that stops a runny nose and stops a runny or sore eyes and constant snivelling. Yes, it's the histamine response. And you can take antihistamines, you might have a dry nose and your eyes will stop dripping, but you'll still suffer from the hay fever, because unless you keep taking the tablets, old boy. Well, the point of the game is to get out of taking the pharmaceuticals and the poisons and to become au natural. That's the object of the game. And the more au natural you can be, the longer you're going to live, and probably the happier and healthier. Naturally, we do self-assassinate, self-damage, but hey-ho, not everybody's perfect. We're going through an obesity crisis in this world, obviously, and yet some people simply cannot lose weight despite being on a diet. Well, my answer to that would be I never saw a fat person ever leave Belsen or any other concentration camp. So I don't get this. I can't lose weight. I've tried everything. Have you tried not eating? That's a good start. Because if you don't feed your body will start to feed off itself. Okay? And they say you shouldn't do that, but I'll tell you the biggest trick to losing weight. I've done several videos about weight loss and managing diets. And if only people would apply what I tell them. But they don't, We might start off with good intentions. Well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, isn't it? Most people go on diets reluctantly. If I was a fatty, I'd be waking up every morning delighted I was on a diet. If I hated being overweight. Absolutely hate it. I've never been overweight in my life. Most of my life I've been underweight, if anything. And I don't understand people who are quite jolly and happy. I'm just one of the happy fat people. No, you're not. Not really. That's a lie. You've told it to yourself so often. You now start to believe your own propaganda. Nobody is truly happy being fat. But the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry don't want a nation of slim people, because it would cost them an absolute fortune and loss of income from the diet pills, wouldn't it? and the pharmaceutical industry would be a loss. And furthermore, the eugenics people would be wholly pissed off if people became fitter and live longer. That's the last thing they want. They want a nation of fatties. It's so much easier to kill them with kindness than kill them with common sense and good advice. Just give them the food. They'll die soon enough. The quicker the better. More people in America die of coronary artery disease because of clinical obesity, being overweight. But you know what? If the truth be known, in the UK, for example, and that's where I am, it doesn't matter. We've all been led up the garden path by these jerks called dietitians and doctors. Because it's not about the food you eat. Well, it truly is, actually. But the advice we've been given has been flawed. Before, they told us, oh, you know, if you have a heart problem or you are overweight and you're on a diet, oh, you know, get your husband to be a flora man. That means get him off animal products and get him on vegetable products. That means put him on margarine. Yes. Use trans fats, vegetable oil fats. This was the big advice given by the industry. Is your man a flora man? Do you care for your husband? Well, make his sandwiches. Talk about sexism. Yeah. Well, there's plenty of fat women. But when we had a nation who was consuming nothing but dairy products, we didn't really have an obesity problem in this country or America. A high-protein diet with dairy products never made anyone fat no how. But the moment the vegetable oils hit the scene, cooking oils, and the other shit, the margarines, and a Trixo and all this other shit that hit the Americans, when they stopped cooking their food in animal fats and changed over to cooking their food with vegetable oils, that's when the problem started. What a coincidence, just at the point of McDonald's changing from, and Dunkin' Donuts changing from using animal fats to cook their things to vegetable oils. But I don't want to get pulled into the diet debate today. I want to talk about how do you get out of the crap you're in. If you have high cholesterol, do you have sticky blood? You know what I mean is the red blood cells clump together. People who are 30-year-old plus will start to be prone to strokes. Their blood becomes more viscous. And you know, the viscosity means it's becoming a bit like syrup instead of water, and the heart's struggling to pump this crap around your micro vessels of your heart, perhaps, or you might have Raynaud's, cold hands. Can't explain why you can't get circulation in your hands. Nice hot day, but my hands are so cold, Betty. Yes, you have Raynaud's disease. It's where the blood isn't getting to the micro vessels at the tips of your fingers. Okay, your hands are always cold. Raynaud's is increasingly common, and it's irritating as hell. Ask yourself why this is on the increase. Because people have increasingly got a higher cholesterol, and their triglycerides. It's not the cholesterol that's the problem, folks. It's the triglycerides. It's the thickness of the blood that's flowing around. Okay? It's the viscosity. And that's more of an important figure to worry about than the high cholesterol. And there are 4 types of cholesterol: too high, too low. Nobody's ever died of having a high cholesterol, I kid you not. But they've died of having a low one, or low level of low cholesterol. They both do totally, entirely separate jobs, and the high cholesterol is not even a marker. It's the low level you want to be careful about. You don't want it too low, that's for sure. That will surely kill you. But they both do separate jobs. And to be honest, high level cholesterol is monitored all the time by the body, and it knows what it wants, so leave it alone. If you have a high level of cholesterol, folks, okay, that's it. So I'm opposed to statins, 100% opposed to statins, because they're absolutely bloody useless. They create more problems than they reckon they solve. The highest prescribed drug, the biggest earning drug in history for the pharmaceutical industry, because we've all been suckered into this. Take this magic pill. Well, it's too little, too late, and it doesn't work anyway. Stay away from statins. But it's not the cholesterol that is causing the problems, folks. It truly isn't the cholesterol. We've all been sold a damaged bill of goods, haven't we? We've all been sold a pup. And that pup is that it's the cholesterol that's the problem. It is not the cholesterol that is causing these premature deaths whatsoever. The fact is that despite people being on diets recommended by the medical industry, they still can't lose weight, doctor. You lying fat bitch, you've been popping donuts while nobody's been looking. I haven't. She probably hasn't. Because we all seem to think, you see, if we get the cholesterol down and we change our diet from dairy to vegetable oils and all this shit, we've got to, by default, lose weight. You're still popping donuts and McDonald's, and aren't you really, love? No, I'm not. The fact is all this business about being overweight. People are overweight because they have an insulin imbalance. They have an insulin intolerance. And huge, I would say 70 to 80% of people who are overweight or struggling to lose weight and can't keep it stable have an insulin imbalance. That means they're insulin, well, you know, you have the pancreas and you have the liver. And insulin controls your sugar levels in your blood. Alright? If you have too much sugar, the sugar is broken down and creates energy. But if there is a mismatch and people are stuffing things like lots and lots and lots of pasta, which is all so good for us all, and lots of other shit that is fundamentally carbohydrates, they get converted into glucose for energy. This is the big diet foods, the carbs, get the carbs. Energy, yeah, I know, but they get converted into glucose, and when the body can't break the glucose down because of lack of insulin, if you can't break it down, it gets stored. It gets stored all over your liver. It gets stored all over your heart. And you end up with fatty liver syndrome. And this is what people are suffering from in America and Britain, in the Western society. You've seen these guys with huge beer guts. Yeah, they're not expecting babies. They all look 9 months gone though, don't they? And there's some women with love handles that are hanging. They look like they've got two arses stuck on their back. This is all because they have an insulin-resistant disease. That's all. So we've got to stop eating the pastas. Stop eating white cane sugar. It's a tough one because I love sweet things. But to be honest, I'm not overweight. But some people have a propensity. Perhaps I'm okay. Perhaps I know I'm okay because I know my pancreas is working and producing sufficient insulin. But I'm one of the lucky ones. Some people can't lose weight despite doing all the right things, and I believe them. It's not their fault. Some of them, they can't help but sneak a donut. That's true. But these people who are clinically obese have a big problem, and it is a disease. It is insulin. It's basically the inability to break sugar down, and that gets stored as fat more and more. And you can become quite clinically obese. You can be doing all the right things, and yet you simply cannot lose the weight. You've been eating the pastas as recommended by all the diet books. You know, you've gone through this. I'm not going to go through it again. But it doesn't matter what you eat when you've got an insulin problem, when you've got resistance, insulin resistance going on, because you're just going to store any excess energy as sugar. Yeah. Fat. That's what you're going to store. So the only way really is that you can go and get a blood test to see if you're insulin. Now type 2 diabetes and type 1 are massively increasing exponentially, particularly type 2. And in America it is estimated that really there is probably 70–80% of people walking around who don't even know they're actually diabetic, and heaven knows how they function. But they don't. They are barely functioning, and they don't even know they're diabetic. Well, you can perhaps hazard a guess. If you see a fatty, they probably certainly are type 2, and it's only one breath away from being a type 1. But they're not diabetic. Look, I've got 0.01. I'm not quite on the turning point of being a diabetic. But look at the size of you. If you're not diabetic, you're bloody lucky to be alive. But if you truly knew, they are diabetic. 70% of people who are clinically obese are type 1s and they don't type 2s, and they don't know it. Just haven't been diagnosed yet. What are they waiting for? A coma? So I'm not a great fan of the general consensus medical world, because I often think that the eugenics process are quite happy to let people be fatties, to be honest with you. They want them to drop dead early anyway. Every year, more people die of coronary artery disease in America than died in that day on 9/11. Think about that. I think it was 2,700 people died on the New World Trade Center. A lot of people. 9/11. Well, more than that die every month with coronary artery disease in America, linked to obesity. Puts in perspective, doesn't it? More people die every year of coronary artery disease and obesity in America than in all the wars, in all the world, in all the times we've ever been at war combined. But every year in America, just America, more people, when you get the aggregate score, more people die every year of coronary artery disease than have ever died in a battle and are buried in America. Well, I've rattled on, but I've got 10 minutes to tell you about something I really think you should be looking at. Okay. Yes. Are you tired all the time? Well, most people are, but then they pass it off. It's my work, it's this, it's the chemtrails, it's the, no, that's, are you tired all the time? Even if you're young, you shouldn't be tired all the time. A lot of people are. They don't get us enough sunlight. We lack energy, despite the food we eat. Well, we know about that. Most people eat the wrong foods. Most people don't have time to exercise, quite frankly. They're too shattered, they're too tired. Last thing you want to do is exercise when you're knackered. I can relate to that. Just want to sleep. You don't get a chance to go out in the sun and sunbathe or go on holiday. A lot of people like this now with the stresses and strains of work, and it costs a lot of money to go on holiday and you don't get a lot of time. You've got the kids to look after. Generally speaking, people are just bloody busy trying to make ends meet. And the first thing to suffer is our health. We're stressed. One of the biggest killers in our world is stress. But we've got to take time out. We really must. I must say, you must take time out. But how can you help yourself a little bit? I alluded earlier to the importance of sunlight. Not all sunlight is good for you. But our Creator never made no trash, no how and exposed it to us. There has to be something in it. Well, of course there's something in it. It's called light. It's called photons. And without photons, folks, we would be absolutely dead. Okay? So take that to the bank. We need light therapy. Without light in our lives, we would go mad, I tell you. Mad! But how can you get a dose of light? Be careful how you say that. Well, there's certain wavelengths of light in the spectrum that we can see and can't see. Okay? And some are good and some are bad. Some are therapeutic and some are dangerous for us. Ultraviolet at right power is good for us in certain exposures and times. Other times it's not very good for us. That's how we get sunlight. Our body makes us melanin covered, nice and brown, because it recognizes as a defense to ultraviolet. Get it behind me, Satan. It doesn't want ultraviolet going in too much into our body, although it needs some, because we need the vitamin D. We do. Our body allows a set amount in and then builds a defense against it. Okay, the longer you sunbathe, the darker your skin goes, to provide more protection, because these little photons, boy, do they travel light speed. I want to show you this new gadget I've got, and there's the things on the back. These are lights, or light emitting diodes, LEDs, and there's 4 there, and there's 1 here, and there's a little ear socket one there, and that is for charging. Okay. We have a radial wrist artery here, called a radial artery on our wrists. Hope you can see that. Okay. And in a couple of minutes, if you watch that radial artery pump, 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 it'll take probably a couple of minutes for your total blood volume to go through it. Maybe 5 minutes. It's a relatively small artery, but this is it's not one to cut. Okay, they tend to bleed a lot, so do you. But that is one you can see quite clearly, and the same on this wrist with radial arteries, because it's near the radius, the bone. Okay, and that's the ones that I cut my wrist to try and kill myself, Betty. Yeah, okay, straight across. If you want to do some real damage, go vertical. This then, if I turn it on, this is a little light box, and it generates light at a specific wavelength. Okay, and that wavelength has been proven to be so beneficial for our health that the more exposure to that wavelength we get, the more fitter and better we will become. This is going to put a tiger in your tank in your red blood cells. And the way it works like this: the wavelength, which is a photon, okay, the light, which is a photon of a set wavelength, goes into our red blood cell, into our DNA, our mitochondrial DNA. it interacts with that DNA, and there's a chemical in a DNA in the mitochondria, which is the engine of the cell, of the red blood cell. Okay, and they're called chromophores. And if you hit the chromophore with light of a certain wavelength, it gets terribly excited. Okay, and it interacts with a chemical called adenosine triphosphate, ATP. And what happens, the little red blood cell gets so excited by this interaction of the light and the chromophore getting excited, two-part glue really, the chromophore and the ATP, because when you mix it together, you get a bit of a chemical reaction which creates, guess what? Energy. So if you stimulate a cell with a particular wavelength hitting the hemoglobin in the mitochondrial DNA of the hemoglobin, you get a little explosion going on, chemical one, and that explosion creates energy. And it does it. Every blood cell is waiting, it's turned itself off. But I'll show you. I got 3 ways of getting this light into my body. First way, if I turn it on, or if I just set something up here, excuse me. Glasses. Stop. Okay. There we are. So you can see I've set it for 40 minutes. I normally do it for 30. Okay. I've got a top screen there saying I've got 4 bulbs there and 1 here. Well, I'm going to turn that one off because I'm not doing one in my nose today. So I'm going to take the mode down a bit. No, I'm just going to do the 4 bulbs. Alright, well, I may as well put them all on. Let's have a go. Right, so you can see now I've got my timer and it's saying I'm ready. What I would do is I would line these up, lights, and that light is for an acupuncture trigger point. Can you see that? And that's bang in the center of the tendon here. Okay, there's a push and pull tendon here. So that's the trigger point. Acupuncturists use these. So I line that up, laser aperture, along my radial artery, and I turn it on. And now it's working. You see that light? And that is pushing that red light, the photons, into every red blood cell that is passing that way. And those red blood cells are giving out energy. That trigger point, that acupuncture trigger point, is being stimulated, okay, which it likes. Because an acupuncture is a meridian line for acupuncture. But this line on here, you can perhaps see it. Here we are. There's a line. You can see it because of the camera, I'm afraid, but there is a line across here. And that will help me line up my radial artery. Okay, you can see. Now, why is that important? Because the blood flowing this way, if your blood is viscous, which it is, and potentially a high cholesterol, all right, or you've got some damage in your body somewhere, you want the energy to be freely available. But I don't put it on my wrists to repair any damage. I put it on my wrists to make sure that my blood hemoglobin, my red blood cells, aren't clumping together. And past about 25, 30 years old, they start to clump together. Okay, like little gang. They should be free flowing, but they're not. If you look under a microscope, they'll huddle together like a bunch of scaredy cats. Okay, they're not stuck together, but they like being in each other's company. what they should be doing is flowing through my arteries quite freely and happily, but they don't, they clump along. That's a danger of having a stroke. I want to reduce that. Not only that, the extra energy allows, if I was damaged here like a cut, any blood servicing that cut and repairing it will have extra energy to speed up the healing process, because it'll have extra oxygen available. Okay, and oxygen is a byproduct of this little interaction. Yeah. So if you've got cut, you can apply the energy laser on a cut. If you like, sit there for 10 minutes with that on your face. Might look daft, but I tell you, you'll find that if you've got a cold sore here, you sit there with it. There's nothing wrong with you turning these on. Okay? And you can see it's on. I can just put it on my cheek if I got a cut, a cold sore. Okay? I can actually put it on my carotid. I don't have to have it on my radial artery because the blood flows here. If I wanted to, I could just shine it in my mouth. It doesn't matter. Can you see that? That light is hitting everything that's passing its way. Because the wavelength of light is probably going into me about that much. About 2 inches. If it was a different wavelength, it would be giving it different distance. Okay? But this isn't technically a laser. This is near infrared and infrared. Is what they call photobiomodulation. So I can look at this without really hurting. It's uncomfortable to look at, but it doesn't damage my retina. But you'll know I spend a lot of my life being a laser therapy person with proper lasers that would blind you. But this won't. See the little trigger point flashing away? And the lights. And that'll turn itself off. Okay? And it's very simple. After every day you do that, it becomes like a routine. And you will find that you have less chance of having a stroke doing that. Where do I get this? I got this on eBay, and you can buy them from Hong Kong, China, but I wouldn't. I'd go on eBay. There you are. Can you see that? And the make is called Think. Okay, and it's fully rechargeable, and you can poke the light up your nose if you want to by putting a light cable on here which comes with it, and you go there. So what I do then, really, he says, being as brief as I can, I strap it on there, I turn it on, I carry on with my business, what I'm doing. It doesn't matter, movement doesn't affect it at all. I know that it's pumping that photons into my hemoglobin as it passes on by. And I do that every day. And I tell you, I used to get a lot of migraine. A lot. And I used to take pills for migraine. Since I've been doing that, well, I can't remember having a migraine attack. Okay? I used to have dizzy spells. Guess what? My dizzy spells were stopped. So these are about £60 sterling. And it's the best. A fully rechargeable battery. Okay, in the back. Comes with everything. And bloody marvellous. Get yourself one of these. You'll have less headaches, less chance of a stroke. It actually reduces the clotability, the stickiness of your red blood cells. You'll be thinking so much clearer. And that's all I've got to say about that, because I could talk hours about it. But if you have an infection, cold sore, herpes simplex, herpes virus, inflammation, because the inflammation happens in your body because it's wanting attention from the red blood cells to bring us some oxygen. I need to repair this. So the red blood cell comes along and it'll just give up the oxygen. All right, if you must. It won't be excited enough to give it too much oxygen, but it does its job, you know. But if the oxygen, the hemoglobin, is in the area and the red light hits it, it'll stimulate the oxygen that's passing where the damage is to give up its oxygen so it can make energy with the chromophore and the ATP I told you about, and that repair would be affected or repaired a lot quicker with the energy from the laser, the treatment. I call it laser, but it's light from the light than it would normally. It turbocharges your little red hemoglobin to give up its oxygen and interact quickly at the point of damage. And that repair will repair quicker than it normally would. Oh, it takes ages to heal, I do, Betty. Not if you're doing that every night on your wrist. You'll find your circulation gets better because your blood's less clotty. You won't get Raynaud's, or you shouldn't. I used to have blue fingertips. This was driving me mad. Oh my God, my circulation was terrible. Since I've been doing that, I haven't had blue fingers behind my, I can see nice and pink fingers here. Can you see them? No longer blue. So, not only do I do this for a living with lasers, far more powerful than this. These are not real lasers. They are light emitting diodes, because these are what they call class 3B. Okay, class 3B and class 3. I deal with class 4 lasers a lot, but when I'm treating animals and humans. So, there we are. Think M, eBay. Okay. And you'll see it there, and they're available. You can buy it from a guy in the UK, or you can go to Hong Kong and get one, but it takes ages from Hong Kong. There we are. It's even got the specifications on there for you. You see that? Absolutely fabulous investment. So light is the future. You don't need blood thinners. You need to understand. Stop taking the statins, but equally, stay away from the pastas and the sugar. Cut out pasta, cut out sugar, definitely cut out white bread, and you'll find yourself losing weight like it's magic. I've run out of time, folks. I must dash. Catch you tomorrow. Dib dib.